Pulavanaka. Yeah, as Ezra said, it's not the stuff that he's been talking about is gold, but it's something that everybody knows and everybody does. It's not rocket science. Every team in the world is doing exactly what Ezra said, what he presented. But it definitely comes down to your actions and the people that you've got in your organisation, how desperately you want it. Do you want to be the best in the world? Yeah, so what do you have to do to get better? And that's something about the Crusaders in 2024. We were disappointed. We had a new coach. Things weren't going our way. The highlight of our year was coming to Suva and beating the Drua because we knew they were coming at us. We had to do everything we can. We had to fight. That was one of those games, if we had lost that game, we would have probably finished 12th. So we did everything we can. We prepared well, but we knew we were putting up a fight. And in the end, we ended up disappointing, but we just missed out on the top six. But we had a good reflection, and we had a terrible year. Things didn't go away. The bounce of the ball. We had new players, but like every good team, when you have a loss, you reflect on where you came from, where you've been, and how do we get better? And that's the key. How do we get better? You can dwell on it all you like, but that ain't going to change. You've got to get better. Because if you want to stay in this competition, you have to strive to be better. So we did. We sat down, had a real good reflection about where we came from. And again, as I said, it is all in the belly stuff. Because you have to be honest. You have to be courageous. You have to be truthful. But I think you have to care what you're doing. And that's one of the biggest Crusaders traits that I've known in all my years that I've been there. And I said it to the managers before. You've got to show care and love and belonging. And if you do that, a sense of purpose, you can go a lot of places, you can drive. We have a bit of a mantra, legacy in our blood. We look back on all the things that the Crusaders did over the last 7 years. All the titles they've won. What did they do well? But again, it comes back to our proof and our action. We can sit there and talk about it, and do nothing about it, but you've got to go out and you've got to believe it and you've got to fight it. So review from 24, 9th place. We had to do something about it. So some of the key insights from our reflections so we had a very thorough review. We brought outside people in. We had peer groups. The leaders took it. First of all, we looked at ourselves inside, because that's what you got to do first up. Look at yourself. What can I do to be better? And then we've got other people to come in to try and put it all together. Ask questions. Ask hard questions about what we did. So some of the insights were the pre-season. We thought we got it right. We went up to the Northern Hemisphere. We played Bristol and we played Munster. We thought we'd go up there, be a good connection, have the team together. But with a new coach, he decided, a new All Black coach, he wanted to keep his All Blacks out of there. He wanted to keep them for themselves, which made it a bit tough, because 9 times out of 10, a year ago, he wanted them all inclusive together. So we went up to the Northern, we left the All Blacks behind, we went up there, took a young team up there. We thought, we'd have a really, really good connection. But what we didn't have the connection of the whole team. So one of the key things that came out of that is that we actually needed to have everybody together. You needed to be as one. You can't have isolated groups. So that was the first area that we sort of looked at. We made a mistake. We didn't have the connection of the whole group together. And despite the challenges, the environment stayed positive. We tried to do everything we possibly could. We put in processes, put in systems, but there was just something lacking. We didn't have that connection, and that was something that came from it. But the players and the staff, they were dedicated. Everybody is still going through that individual excellence. They tried to be the best they could be and everything they needed to be. But the other thing we found out there, again, when it came to the issues with communication gaps, so we weren't connected as an organisation. There was a bit of fragmentation going on between different various groups. And that was no one's fault, it's just the way it sort of fell into it. Came back to that right at the start again, the foundations, we weren't connected enough. And it's sort of just like the old snowball thing, it just started to roll, but There was issues with in selection, injury management, player availability in our preparation. So we were sort of just going in different directions, and there was no one really keeping us on that true north. At no fault of anyone's. It's just the way it went. We had a brand new head coach. We had new management teams, new people in there, and they just weren't aligned. So there's lots of gaps. But the good thing about all these things here is that we had a good look and we knew where we are. We looked and found where we were going. Again, we in the belly had a review. The other thing that we lacked, it wasn't a bad lack, is that probably we didn't put enough emphasis on it, is our leadership group. The leadership group just wasn't connected because a lot of the leaders were All Blacks, and they were back in New Zealand. There's only some of them went to the Northern Hemisphere. So there was a bit of dysfraction amongst it, that they weren't all together to be able to create that harmony in that team. So they ended up the key things to identify from the 2024, that we need to identify future leaders. Bring in some of the young guys, because the All Blacks are going to go on. They're not going to be there next year. So it's almost like future-proofing. And as I mentioned to the managers, it's having a plan B. What is our plan B? Let's bring some of these young fellas through who could actually, they've got good insights. Yeah. And some of these young fellas, they helped supported their ownership of their roles, because they knew what they were doing. They were young players, they had aspirations, they had a voice. And you tend to listen to the leaders too much, but have the young guys coming through that, they've all got opinions. Everyone in the team's got an opinion. So if you bring the right people in, you grow them, they're our future leaders. So what came of that? We had a very good, thorough review. It took probably 4 weeks. Everybody got interviewed. Everybody spoke their mind. It was all with good intentions around how do we get better. Just like the aspirations of the Flying Fijians. We want to win that trophy again in 2025. So the recommendations that came out. So we needed to plan a camp to align our understanding of the Crusaders' performance, standards and legacies. So again, we got everyone together. Everyone said, we thought we were going to go back to the Northern Hemisphere, and because that's where the money was. You go up to the Northern Hemisphere, you can make a lot of money. But it wasn't about money, it was about getting back on track. Everybody was hurting from 2024, and everybody wanted to get better. That was one of the key drivers. Everybody wanted to get better. So how do we get better? So we listened to our key insights and recommendations. So we planned a really good camp. We sat down and did our values, talked about our legacy, talked about our standards, had our leaders, had those new leaders. We had the All Blacks. We appointed a captain in David Havili. He was the first-time captain. He set up his leadership group of very experienced players, people who are going to show actions. Again, intentions is one thing, but David wanted leaders who would actually lead and lead by their actions. And if you saw some of the games that we had this year, those players, they stood up. They stood up when they needed to stand up. And they brought people along with them as part of that journey, and that was so important. Well, I think we had 11 new players in the squad this year. So getting that quick alignment and that camp was just so important. Just like we're doing here, we had our foundation week last week. And you can see sort of the young guys, they're really starting to understand and the belief in what we're trying to achieve, what the coaches are trying to achieve, what Fiji's trying to achieve. And just like the Crusaders wanted to win that trophy in 2025, what I've seen in Foundation Week with the Fijians, the Flying Fijians, there's a massive belief. There's such a big belief. I can see it in 1 week. I want to come back and win the World Cup with Fiji. That's I feel so humble and proud. I want to be there. Yeah. Yeah. And I do believe that they will. I've seen what these guys have done in 1 week. And I've been with the Crusaders for 11 years. These guys will do it. It's not that they can do it. I believe they will do it. Simple. A big part of our recommendations was the community is so important to us for our identity. So we didn't do enough in the previous year, we didn't do enough in community events. So we went to the community, we went to our commercial marketing guys and said, right, these are windows in our plan. We want to be a part of the community. We want to share with our stakeholders, because our stakeholders are important to us. So how do we do it? And that was a big part of what we missed in the previous years. So we structured a community engagement program. We have people come in each week. We have kids come in. There's thousands of kids, just like you do here. But it's important to connect with the community, because one, that keeps you level-headed, keeps you grounded. Again, no one's bigger than anybody. No one's bigger than the team. So that was an important part of us growing, is connecting with our community. The communication and team selection process, yeah, there was a bit of alignment. Probably the week wasn't structured enough, so we needed to actually put some more structure into our week, a lot more planning. And Rob Penny, when he came in for his second year, he thought about the weaknesses, what I wasn't doing. Again, it was the same thing, reflection, put it into action. Reflection, intention, and actions. So he brought it in a lot more meetings not a lot more meetings, but structured meetings. So the meetings weren't for the sake of having meetings. And the weekly selection systems, I mean, when did they need to meet for the selection? So again, all that stuff was what data they needed to inform decisions, when and who and how the selection is communicated, and what's the follow-up process. So it was all around making sure that the coaching group were aligned, making sure that they had a sense of purpose, they knew what they were doing, they knew where they were going. Again, and when it comes down to my new brother Dan, everybody knew exactly what they needed to do, where they needed to be. The lines of communication are just so important, and that was a big thing. That obviously reflection is our communication wasn't that great, and our processes weren't that great. So it's just a matter of streamlining those, making clear. We all work from a calendar. I showed the team managers, we have our calendar that we bring up every week, and in our management meeting we go through the calendar so everybody's aligned, everybody knows exactly where to be, what they need to do, everyone has clarity in their role, everybody is on the same page. And that was a big purpose that we found out what I call our true north. We know exactly where we were going. So it was really simple. We just needed to really understand where we came from and where we need to be and what actions we needed to take to get there. So yeah, it's not as I said, it's not rocket science what the Crusaders do. In all my number of years being there, it's all about care, it's all about belonging, it's all about having a shared purpose and an understanding where you want to be. And the thing to me, it's around connection. One of the biggest things that the Crusaders do every day is they look at each other in the eye, look each man in the eye, and say, we say good morning, not yantra. That we do it with a closed fist. Good morning. We connect, we look at each other, we man up, and then we go to work. It's as simple as that. There's no salt, there's no sprinkle of dust. It's just being who you are as an individual, as a person. Yeah. Throw your salt over your shoulder. But just show love and belonging. That's all you have to do. If you do that, you're a better man, a better person, and people will follow you. People will go with you. Yeah. It's pretty, and the results show for itself. We won the final at home. We beat those Chiefs. As you know, Graham Jews was one of the coaches with them. But I tell you what one of the secrets of our success was, the night we played the Chiefs at home in the final, it was 3 or 4 degrees. It was freezing cold. But the secret was, we had hot water bottles. And the boys kept their hands warm with them on. And so when they went on the field, they were ready to go. So we're just one step ahead. And I said to Graham, I said, did you know that? He said, no. He said, our boys, they were flat, they were cold. I said, yeah, we had hot water bottles. And that's why we won. We had hot water bottles. So that is the secret to the Crusaders' success. Hot water bottles. Not that you need it over here.
So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. You probably don't need hot water bottles in Fiji because it's probably never that cold.
Rotorua next week, maybe.
So I can hear some stomachs starting to rumble. We've actually probably got another few slides, but what we might do is just have a wee reflection, if that's okay, on what you've heard so far. So you can either get up and share a reflection. What does the action look like for you? We've stirred the pot with a few things, but that's the Crusader way. Yeah, plus hot water bottles. Yeah, but what does some of that mean to you, and how can you apply that for your team? And you know when you're a part of something special, because it's the feeling, eh? It's the passion you can feel when people talk about who they represent. The passion. Terry's been here for 9 days, 10 days, and he wants a Fijian passport already. He's coming back for the World Cup. But the environment and the people create that, eh? Inspire that feeling in us to want to go with each other. And that's a special thing. So you go into an organisation, you get promised the world around the resources and everything, and you get there and it doesn't look like that. That's a lack of integrity. So there's a misalignment from the start, and you have a lot of other people in the background doing that. You're set up to fail straight away. So as a coach, and many of our aspiring coaches or S&C staff, you're going to get offered opportunities along the way, but be really clear on your value set. And does your value set align with the environment you're going into? That's really important, because if you don't, it's hard to build that trust. Yeah, doesn't mean you can't do it, but it's going to make the journey harder, and potentially you end up in those situations. Rob Penn is an outstanding man. Yep. He mentored me when I was coming through the age group system. Yeah, so I knew all the good qualities, and I was with them all the way in 2024. Message after every game: "We got this, brother." I went into the Crusaders after they lost to the Brumbies over in Canberra last year, pretty much killed them off. They got scored against in the last minute, and I shared the story of 2001 when we come 10th. The same group of men and staff went unbeaten the next year. So it's very similar to the story that Terry told. We went back to the hills, we shared sweat, we shared blood, we picked each other up off those hills, we smacked each other in the boxing ring, we wrestled each other on the judo mats, and we went deep. So one of the values was work ethic. There's no substitute for work ethic. If you don't do the work and you don't do it together, there's no connection when you really need it, eh? No, you're bang on. Honesty is the key. Because then you're not second guessing yourself later on down the track. And I have a policy for the teams I'm involved when I'm selected as a head coach is the message is the message. But how we deliver the message is key, eh? So the message is quite a hard one to take for players, but it's always delivered with care and empathy. And then what do we do about it next? So how can we help you? So we had that conversation with the player the other day who wasn't selected for the game on the weekend. His reflections, he wasn't ready when he turned up for camp. So I didn't even have to give him the feedback. He was aware enough through non-selection that he needed to be in a better state when he turned up for camp. Yeah. So for us, we narrowed down what are our key priorities for the first week. So we really looked at what do we need to achieve in the first week to set us up to be successful against Tonga, to live our values and drive our values, and to keep growing on the way, because we know we're going to need to be better for later on down the track. And everything we're doing is trying to drive us towards 2027. We're probably going to lose some games along the way. We know that's going to be part of the journey, but not being defined by that. You go back to what did we learn, where are we at, what were the reasons, and where can we be better? And I think that's that growth mindset that we're trying to build with our players. And every time we lose, it's just an opportunity to learn and grow. And every time we win, it's an opportunity to learn and grow as well. It doesn't really matter if you're on the top of the mountain or you're in the bottom of the pit. We humble ourselves and come back and just do the same thing the next day.
Yeah, I also think it's the players are just so excited to actually be in with their mates again. They can't wait to get in. So I think it's a lot of it's driven by them. We're lucky. You're in a hotel for a week or 2 weeks. Whereas if you like the Crusaders or anything like that, you go home after So those connections are there all the time. And it's probably actually easier to be in a camp for 1 week than it is at home for 2 weeks, because you're actually together and everything is authentic, and everything you do is the connections are there because they're in each other's pockets all the time. So
Just to add a bit of context, so when we played Australia back in July, we'd had 8 assembly days. That includes our admin, our induction, and our awesome logistics team that come in and get the boys set up with the gear and all that. Tale and her team. Australia had 27 days before that game over the year. So that's a challenge, but we never use that as an excuse, because it is what it is. So we just got to make sure we get our stuff right, things that we can control, and then go and attack the game. And nearly got them, eh? Coach Mick's philosophy is for the first selection, everybody is in until the team gets read out, just for the first selection. That's to make sure we're not having the selection calls early, and then you have, because we're all constantly monitoring values in action. So the first selection is nobody's communicated with until afterwards. And when he reads out the team, he says, all those that are non-selected, we will pick you up. So that's what we've been doing with the 7 guys not selected this week. Going forward, for the other games, any player that drops out of the 15 or the 23 will be communicated with. And the non-23 players, they're on that sort of program anyway. Yeah. We have, the coaches are constantly checking in with the players, eh? At the end of training, we have what's called an IGP, individual growth plans. And they are in 5-minute blocks. And in those 5-minute blocks, they are the skills that the coaches are giving our players, or the tools, to grow their game. And then the other opportunity, because often coaches will know, players will be saying, we just need an opportunity, coach. But every day is an opportunity. You turn up in the morning and present yourself for breakfast, there's an opportunity. Show the coach you're ready. Show the coach you're hungry. Show the coach you're ready to live it. Yeah, and then what we see is when we start to see all those little habits forming, around breakfast and around strapping and around hydration and all those things, diet, we start to see the shift in the performance. The performance grows there through those little skill blocks.
And I think the competition actually, the players actually see what the other guys are doing, and they actually just rise to each occasion. They actually bring each other up to a standard. They know what they need to be, where they need to be. So competition drives a lot of that too.